You are live on the Intersection with Michael Popok here, exclusively on the Midas Touch Network. When I made my notes for tonight, I was like, what should I lead with? Bondi, Bondi, Bondi. Pam Bondi did not cover herself in any glory today, fighting, pugilistic, trying to defend her honor, her integrity, her honesty, none of which she has. She's presided over the most corrupt Department of Justice in our history. And we had an attorney general who went to jail for 17 months in Ehrlichman under Richard Nixon. So that's saying a lot. While her bosses, her Stephen Millers, her Donald Trumps might have been high-fiving her, going after and saying, well, what about you, Senator? What about you, Senator? The eyes of history, the eyes of the American voter are upon her. The eyes of future impeachment managers, the eyes of bar regulators, the eyes of future prosecutors are also upon Pam Bondi, who couldn't answer a straight question. And I just have to ask a question that's not rhetorically posed. Is this what we want in our Department of Justice? Is this what we want as our Attorney General? Does this make us proud? Is this holding up the rule of law? No. Justice Connection, a new group that's going to be working with us on Legal AF, just issued a letter. We're going to talk about it in a little bit. 282 former members of the Department of Justice who all left voluntarily or involuntarily since January have declared that the House is on fire. The Department of Justice has been destroyed and laid to waste. Sorry, got tongue-tied there. By Pam Bondi and the Chief Legal Officer of the United States, Donald Trump. And we can do something about it. There's a call to action. And then we have what I like to call the 25th Amendment moment. If we're not talking seriously about taking Donald Trump out by way of the 25th Amendment, then whatever that was supposed to be, Ghislaine Maxwell, that, I don't know, that Puff Daddy and a pardon, that I kind of remember. But Ghislaine Maxwell, you can't remember your best friend's best friend and lover, the child sex trafficker convicted of 5 counts of child sex trafficking, the one that you had your head of the Department of Justice, your number 2 in the Department of Justice, give immunity to, give a queen for the day. I'm going to gag as I say this. Gave her a queen for the day, gave a convicted child sex trafficker immunity while she's serving 20 years, not so she can roll over on other people who child sex trafficked, but so that she, as a convicted child sex trafficker, can vouch and bolster Donald Trump's reputation. That's how low he has sunk. He needs, what's next? We're going to get a serial killer to bolster the reputation of Donald Trump? Why don't we just trot them out of jail? Take everybody off of death row and have them say what a great guy Donald Trump is. Is that where we're going next? And then when he's caught by a question he should have been prepared for, because the Supreme Court ruled against Maxwell, we'll talk about that. He gave the name, I don't know, Ghislaine who? What? Haven't thought about that name. Haven't thought about that name since when? 10 minutes before you sat down behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office? Am I fired up today? Is it the new eyewear? I don't know. We're going to find out together. Oregon leading the way with federal judges like Judge Immergut, who ruled against the Trump administration in an emergency hearing that we covered on the Midas Touch Network. We got everybody out of bed or out of whatever they were doing. We got video editors to join us because we had Attorney General Rob Bonta from California talk to us right after the emergency hearing in which a federal judge issued the second emergency temporary restraining order against the Trump administration in 24 hours. And what was the Trump administration's response? She's an insurrectionist. I'm talking about the federal judge. She's a terrorist. You know, Stephen Miller, the co-president of the United States, who elected this guy? When is the giant rock that moved and Pam Bondi and Stephen Miller and Pete Hegseth and all the others crawled out from under? When is it going to get back into place and these people back under the rock? It can't come soon enough for our democracy, for our rule of law. Stephen Miller uses the I word, insurrection. She's an insurrectionist. Get her. Pitchforks, torches. Well, maybe not torches. We just had a judge's house burned down in South Carolina. She's an insurrectionist against the Constitution. He's representing the upside down world Abraham Lincoln, who's attacking free states to try to crush them under his military thumb. You know who loves an insurrection? Stephen Miller. You know who's pushing for the declaration of the Insurrection Act the way Jeffrey Clark did in 2020? Stephen Miller. That's why Donald Trump has it in his brain. When he can't remember Ghislaine Maxwell, he remembered on his palm card the I word, insurrection. What does that mean? Isn't there a definition for insurrection? Can't federal judges do something about it? Why didn't the Illinois judge stop the march of militarized troops into and occupying Illinois? We'll talk about that. Then we've got this. There we go. Thank you, Ben. Not Ben Mycelis, although that would be fun to picture him working behind the scenes during one of my podcasts. We got an editor, producer named Ben, and he's with us tonight. Eastern District of Virginia, the once proud prosecutor's office for the U.S. attorney, no more, laid to waste by Pam Bondi and Donald Trump. Think about this image. It's both on fire and it's leaking. I don't know how you can have something on fire and leaking at the same time. You got leak. It's part of the resistance from within. It's like one of those horror movies. The call is coming from within the house. Yes, Department of Justice personnel are obviously leaking to have the public know what's really going on in places like the Eastern District of Virginia. And we have two new leaks, one involving James Comey, one involving Letitia James's case. And we're going to break those down. At the same time, you've got heads of major departments of the Eastern District of Virginia, when they're not actually resisting, prosecutor Lindsay Halligan, who, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, she has spent more time in hair and makeup at Fox, at Newsmax, shilling for Donald Trump, and as a third runner-up in a beauty pageant, and that's all true, than she has as a federal prosecutor. And Lindsay Halligan, I mean, I've said this to the other lawyers that are involved on all my segments, like Bondi and Halligan. You got a law license. You took an oath of office. You know, it's a license. It's a privilege. You may get it yanked joining a long list of lawyers for Donald Trump who were indicted, convicted, and or lost their bar licenses, like Jeffrey Clark, like Rudy Giuliani, like Ken Chesborough, like almost Sidney Powell, except she's in Texas and they saved her license, like Jenna Ellis, Lindsay Halligan. I know you're all caught up in the power-hungry moves of Donald Trump and you want to satisfy his every need, but you got a bar license to worry about, unless you don't care because you don't need a bar license to be on the Fox and Friends couch. I think that's where we're at. So Eastern District of Virginia matters, and the new developments that will help cases like James Comey and Letitia James for vindictive prosecution and the rest. We'll talk about that. And then it's SCOTUS season. The United States Supreme Court is back open for business. That used to be a big thing the first Monday in October. It's like, oh, we got to wait, because nothing happened in the summer except they used to go off. All the justices went off on these all expense paid trips, guest lecturer in Norway, hosted by, the monarchists of Italy, at these, all these places. That's all. They wrote a book, they gave lectures. But now with the emergency docket, 20, 30 emergency cases over the summer, it's like the old country song. How will we miss you if you'll never leave? They never left. Ruling after ruling after ruling on the emergency docket, all 84% in favor of Donald Trump. Now, the emergency docket doesn't stop, even though the court is back in session, because the emergency docket is not just when the court is not in session. We had rulings in April at 1:00 in the morning against Donald Trump on the quote unquote emergency docket. So they run parallel. But the first Monday of October is here. They already had an oral argument in the Childs versus Salazar case about conversion therapy and the First Amendment. And tomorrow, come over to Legal AF YouTube, because we're doing a live of the next oral argument Bost versus Illinois about voting. And we'll have that up at 10 a.m. tomorrow that you can join us there. That was a big introduction. I think the other thing is I'm just jazzed to be back doing live. It was the Jewish holidays last week. So, I got a nice crowd, got about 5,000 people out there. I see you guys in your chats. If I ever take a break, I'll try to respond to some of the questions. But I'm glad you're all here. So that's what we're gonna start with. Ben, are you ready? Flash the lights if you're ready. We're gonna dive in to Pam Bondi, Pamela Jo Bondi, or as Laura Loomer, the right-wing wackos, calls her, Pam Blondie. All right, her words, not mine. She was I don't know if you heard. She was, if you're not on the Midas Touch Network, maybe you missed it. She got roasted by the Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee today in an oversight committee hearing. But she was ready, was she? She was prepped to within an inch of her life by right-wing podcasters and influencers and Stephen Miller. And in the palm card she had was never answer a question. And here is nasty, untrue things to say about each of the senators in a game of whataboutism. Epstein, but what about you? Taking marching orders from Donald Trump and not being independent, but what about you? She actually said to one of the senators, well, I saw you out with Casa Incorporated. That was about birthright citizenship. And there was some Antifa in the crowd. How do you know that, Pamela Jo? They were wearing Antifa t-shirts? Is that how you knew? And I don't claim that you're Antifa. And it went downhill from there. In fact, I thought it'd be fun. I don't want to call this the best of because I'm still digesting and regurgitating and throwing up in my mouth over what Pam Bondi said today. There'll be more hot takes, I assure you. But let's just do a nice clip. It starts off with Dick Durbin, who's not only the ranking Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, but also a senator from Illinois. You might have heard Illinois is under attack by the federal government starting this week. But he had a great way of framing Pamela Jo Bondi presiding over the most corrupt Department of Justice and destroying it in less than 10 months. And let's play the clip of Dick Durbin first.
Thanks, Chairman Grassley, for holding this oversight hearing. Welcome, Attorney General Bondi. I'm glad that we are following this committee's longstanding tradition of regular oversight hearings with the Attorney General, the Director of the FBI, and the Secretary of Homeland Security. These hearings have never been more important as President Trump turns the full force of the federal government on Chicago and other American cities. The assault on the city I am proud to represent is just one example of how President Trump and Attorney General Bondi shut down justice at the Department of Justice even before the president's party, controlling the White House, Senate, and House of Representatives, shut down the government. The Attorney General has systematically weaponized our nation's leading law enforcement agency to protect President Trump and his allies and attack his opponents and, sadly, the American people. You have purged hundreds of senior career officials since you first appeared before us. These men and women had dedicated their careers to protecting the American people. As a result, the department has lost literally thousands of years of law enforcement expertise. To be specific, you disbanded the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force and the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team, despite the growing threat of foreign election interference and the drastic rise in cryptocurrency crimes. You forced out almost 75% of the Civil Rights Division's career attorneys, while hate crimes are on the rise.
And it went downhill from there for Pamela Jo Bondi. And Dick Durbin was being kind. I just interviewed, it'll be going up tomorrow, the executive director of Justice Connection, which represents the alumni of the Department of Justice who have just come out with their new letter. And she told us in a briefing for Legal AF that 5,300, are you sitting down for this number? 5,300 Department of Justice attorneys and staff have been fired or let go or shown the door by Donald Trump since he took office 9.5 months ago. And they haven't been replaced. The 75% of the Civil Rights Division, that have left have not been replaced because this administration doesn't care about public integrity and public corruption because they're the major promoters of it. They don't care about civil rights except to weaponize it against the people that they're supposed to be protecting. Now, let's turn to Senators Whitehouse and Klobuchar for some interesting back and forth with Pam Bondi about Epstein, and we'll talk about the Epstein files today, about Homan and the $50,000 bribe to the border czar, and about Donald Trump effectively ordering Pam Bondi around to go after his political enemies with prosecutions. Let's play the clips back to back to back.
Let me ask you something else. There's been public reporting that Jeffrey Epstein showed people photos of President Trump with half-naked young women. Do you know if the FBI found those photographs in their search of Jeffrey Epstein's safe or premises or otherwise? Have you seen any such thing?
You know, Senator Whitehouse, you sit here and make salacious remarks, once again trying to slander President Trump left and right, when you're the one who was taking money from one of Epstein's closest confidants, I believe, I could be wrong, correct me, Reid Hoffman, who was with Jeffrey Epstein on multiple occasions. And the senator sitting right next to you tried to block the flight logs from being released. Yet you're grilling me on President Trump and some photograph with Epstein? Come on.
The question is, did the FBI find those photographs that have been discussed publicly by a witness who claimed Jeffrey Epstein showed them to him? You don't know anything about that. Okay.
Senator, as Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche recently stated, the investigation of Mr. Homan was subjected to a full review by the FBI, agents, and DOJ prosecutors. They found no credible evidence of any wrongdoing.
And that was not my question. My question was, what became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI delivered, evidently in a paper bag, to Mr. Homan?
Senator, I'd look at your facts.
Are you saying that they did not deliver $50,000 in cash to Mr. Homan?
Senator, as recently stated, the investigation of Mr. Homan was subjected to a full review
different question.
by the FBI agents,
That's a
by
different
Department
question.
of Justice prosecutors. They found no evidence of wrongdoing.
That's a different question. What became of the $50,000? Did the FBI get it back?
Mr. Whitehouse, Senator Whitehouse, you're welcome to talk to the FBI.
The report to you, can't you answer this question?
Senator Whitehouse, you're welcome to discuss this with Director Patel.
We saw this with the president directing an investigation prosecution of Chris Krebs, the former head of cybersecurity, Lisa Cook, who is a current governor of the Federal Reserve, Director Comey. And the president, and I know you have said that you will not discuss discussions you've had with the president about Comey. Is that correct? That you won't testify here about that? Because I was going to ask you if you received advice, instruction, or request from anyone at the White House to direct the department to engage in any investigations, prosecutorial actions, including decisions not to investigate or prosecute anyone.
I'm not going to discuss any conversations.
But then how about the Truth Social post on September 20th, 2025, in which the president said, "We can't delay any longer, Pam," using your name, "not bringing criminal charges are killing our reputation," his words, "and credibility." And then goes on to tell you to prosecute a member of this committee, to prosecute the Attorney General of New York, and to prosecute James Comey. Do you consider that a directive to the Justice Department?
Senator Klobuchar, President Trump is the most transparent president in American history. And I don't think he said anything that he hasn't said for years.
Okay, it has been reported that you initially pushed back against requests by senior Trump administration officials to push out or fire the acting U.S. attorney in Virginia, Eric Siebert, who's a conservative Republican, who made the decision that that the evidence was not there to prosecute Comey. What made you change your opinion?
I am not going to discuss personnel decisions.
Okay.
Well, does that make you feel any better about Pam Bondi? I guess she decided she was going to squint her way through answering questions with just this look of disdain. As I said before, Trump is, I'm going to write a book about this. I already have the title, The Incredible Shrinking Presidency. The more he tries to act like a military dictator and a strongman, and those around him, his enablers, the smaller he gets and shrinks in front of the American people. And Pam Bondi better hope that Donald Trump's grip on power doesn't slip just ever so slightly, because she will go down the drain if that happens. And at the rate we are going, with the polling numbers showing he has a lack of political capital, he had very little in the last several months, and now it's down to 39% of the American people support Donald Trump. She'll be the first one he throws under the bus. I'm surprised she's still even here, given some other past problems related to the Epstein files. And if she thinks she's going to squint her way and snarl her way through an oversight committee hearing like this one, she's got another thing coming. Now, of course, the Republicans on the committee, which I'm not even going to bother showing you, they were just looking for a distractor. The FBI and the special counsel, Jack Smith, wiretap some of the people on this committee. Well, maybe if you were involved with an insurrection, yes. It's again, and all of this, I'm sorry, I'm going to do an imitation now. All of this pearl clutching, and I half expected a Pam Bondi to pull out a fan. I do declare, my integrity is being challenged. I will not sit here for this. No, you're going to sit down, Pam. You're going to sit here for this, because that's what and this is every month from now until the end of the administration, because you've demonstrated that you are the most corrupt attorney general and partisan hack that we have ever had. Just as Kash Patel has demonstrated he's the most corrupt member and partisan hack of the FBI that we've ever had. And that will be the first line in your obituaries. I don't mean anytime soon. I just mean in general. So that was Pam Bondi as she presides over these things. Let me switch gears now. And when we come back from a quick break, I want to talk about Epstein and her rehabilitation campaign and how that's going, since even the MAGA 6 on the United States Supreme Court said, yeah, no, we're not going to let you reverse your conviction for child sex trafficking and bail out Donald Trump on this issue. Because you know what Donald Trump wanted to do, right? He wanted to have the Supreme Court. He was lighting candles, praying that the Supreme Court was going to allow her appeal. That's the one-liner. Denied. Okay, denied on the appeal that she already filed. No, we're not going to hear it. And by the way, that appeal was not, I'm not guilty. The appeal was not the judge in New York committed reversible error. There's jury tampering. There's prosecutorial misconduct. I wasn't allowed to put on witnesses. I wanted to testify, but I couldn't. It's not any of that. She didn't claim in her filings that she wasn't guilty. She claimed she was entitled to immunity. Who does that sound like? I get immunity from a non-prosecution agreement that I didn't even sign, that Epstein signed in 2008 down in Florida. How does that work? It doesn't. But that's what her argument was. Even Donald Trump's own Department of Justice, even his chief former criminal appellate lawyer, now Solicitor General John Sauer, in his filing to deny the appeal, said she's guilty and she doesn't get the benefit of the non-prosecution agreement. When we come back, we'll talk about Donald Trump and why the 25th Amendment is being raised again in some of his dementia-like moments in response to questions by the press. I'm surprised he still takes questions from the press, by the way. And then you've got the what's going on in Oregon and Illinois with the National Guard as we watch Donald Trump continue to attack states' rights, to violate the 10th Amendment of the United States, to undermine and to destroy our very system of federalism and the relationship between the states and the federal government, the relationship between the people and the state and the federal government, and what federal judges are doing about it. Eastern District of Virginia on fire and leaking, and I'll talk about what that means and what the resistance looks like. And then SCOTUS is open for business, and we got some new cases to talk about there as well. You're on The Intersection. It's my podcast on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Then again, you knew that. You're here. And what we're trying to do is continue to grow The Intersection. It's doing great because of you. I'm doing my part. I mean, I'm doing whatever I can do. New glasses, a big pot of coffee. I'm ready. But without your support, your fervent devotion and support, enthusiasm for what we're doing here, it would all be for naught, right? My editor would be out of a job. I'm only kidding, Ben. You would not be out of a job. But on the way the hummingbird theory here applies, help us on the audio. Just put in The Intersection on audio podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple, and then watch us on YouTube and listen to us on the audio. There we go. Thank you, Ben. And that helps. Right now, we're about to crack in, I think, again, to the YouTube top 100 of all podcasts on YouTube. That's quite a testament to our audience. And we're trying to get back into the top 100 on Apple for news. And that's all with you. And then the other ways to support what we do here, because this is like an ecosystem around law and politics, The Intersection. Legal AF, the YouTube channel that I curate, you might have heard about it. Okay. We're at about 850,000 subscribers. We're going to hit that million if it kills me before the new year, by the end of December. 10 new videos every day. A fair amount of them are mine, but a lot of other amazing contributors at that intersection of law and politics. So come to the Legal AF YouTube channel. And then we've got a Substack, Legal AF Substack. I love Substack because of its immediacy, because I can do things with our group on Substack and with our audience I can't do on YouTube. I do 2 lives a day, pulling 2,000 or 3,000 people together at a moment's notice to update them on matters. We got amazing writing going on there, and journalism and commentary you can't find anywhere else. And that's the way to support what we do. When I joked about texting to say, we got Rob Bonta, the Attorney General of California. He's coming out of the hearing now in Oregon. We got to get him. Somebody picked up the phone. First of all, my phone worked, and somebody picked up the phone and said, we're there, Popok. Here's the link. Let's jump on. And somebody edited that. We literally got it up within an hour. It's up there now on Midas Touch. And that's where the paid subscribers come in. It's $7 a month. We kept it low. I promise you an amazing return on your investment. If you want to become a full-fledged Legal AF card-carrying member, become a Legal AF Substack paid member. And we've got, of course, our pro-democracy sponsors. And here's a word from them now. You know that nostalgic feeling of sitting at the breakfast table as a kid and pouring a giant bowl of cereal that just tasted amazing? Well, Magic Spoon has reinvented that feeling with cereal and treats that bring back the flavors you love, but in a way that actually fuels your day. Every serving of Magic Spoon's high-protein cereal packs 13 grams of protein, 0 sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs. And the flavors, straight out of your childhood, fruity, cocoa, and frosted. And then there are the Magic Spoon treats. Crispy, crunchy, airy, and ridiculously satisfying with 12 grams of protein in every bar. They come in mouth-watering flavors like marshmallow, chocolate peanut butter, and dark chocolate. Perfect on the go, pre or post-workout, or even as late-night snack. Here's how you try them. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/legalaf, or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/legalaf for $5 off. This episode of Legal AF is brought to you by Moinkbox. Did you know 4 companies control over 80% of the U.S. meat industry, and that the largest share of U.S. pork is now controlled by China? These meat giants use mobster-like tactics to crush American family farms, flooding our food supply with sketchy additives and low-quality meat. So what can you do about it? Here's where Moink comes in. Featured on Shark Tank, Moink is standing up for family farms and your food security. Their meat comes from animals raised outdoors, like nature intended. Their farmers get an honest day's pay, and Moink delivers straight to your doorstep at a price you can actually afford. This is real American meat, born, raised, and harvested right here in the USA. Moink is helping save rural America. I love it, and you will too. Join the Moink movement today, support American family farms, and join the, wait for it, Moink movement today at moinkbox.com/legalaf right now and get free bacon for a year. That's 1 year of the best bacon you'll ever taste, but only for a limited time. Spelled MOINK. box.com/legalaf. That's moinkbox.com/legalaf. And welcome back to the intersection. And let's get in. And sit down, relax. That was the last commercial break. Appreciate you. Support everything we do on Legal AF and on the intersection. And this is the way to do it. Let's get into Epstein and Maxwell and the 25th Amendment moment. It's easy. Maxwell files an appeal asking the Supreme Court through a writ of certiorari to take her appeal, arguing not that she's not guilty, but that she gets the benefit, the beneficiary of an immunity deal that she didn't even sign, that Epstein signed. Quickly rejected by the Supreme Court in one line. Every Monday they do what's called the long conference. They do a list and they say whether cert is granted, meaning appeal, we take you, or cert denied. And right up there at the top, Maxwell, cert denied. Now her lawyer said out loud, this is not the end. It is the end, David Oscar Marcus, because that's the last stop on the train, and get off. Now, why does this undermine Donald Trump? Because he wanted the Supreme Court to take the appeal so he could get up at some point in social media in all caps in the middle of the night and say something like, well, you know, there's a lot of victims in here and she may well be a victim. There's good people on both sides. You know, like in the Holocaust, there were good people on both sides. There's good people on both sides here. And so I'm going to give her a pardon. Now he can't do that. Now he is literally going to have to pardon an unrepentant, because we've seen her testimony to Todd Blanche, an unrepentant convicted child sex trafficker of 5 counts. And that came up in a Q&A when he was asked just yesterday after the ruling came out. And don't buy this for a minute. He acts like he didn't know what the ruling was. He's made every major decision here about Ghislaine Maxwell. She needs immunity before she'll testify. Give her immunity. That was his order to Todd Blanche. Make sure she says something nice about me. Yes. Give her a better prison as a reward. Donald Trump. Who do you think's making these decisions? Pamela Joe Squinty Bondi? No, that's not happening. So he's asked point blank, and it was as if he wasn't ready for the question. And here is the dementia-like moment. Let's play the clip.
Say it. The Supreme Court is back, and they rejected today an appeal by Ghislaine Maxwell to overturn her conviction. That means her only chance of getting out of prison is a pardon from you. Is that something you're...
Who are we talking about?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
You know, I haven't heard the name in so long. I can say this, that I'd have to take a look at it. I would have to take a look. Did they reject that?
She wanted to appeal her conviction.
And what happened?
They said that they were not going to hear her appeal.
I see. Well, I'll take a look at it. I will speak to the DOJ. I wouldn't consider it or not consider it. I don't know anything about it. So, but I will speak to the DOJ.
Why would she be a candidate for clemency, sir?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to speak to the DOJ. I'll look at it. I have a lot of people who have asked me for pardons. I call him Puff Daddy has asked me for a pardon.
But she was convicted.
Yeah, Puff Daddy's asked him for a pardon. You remember Puff Daddy's name? I haven't thought about that name in a long time. I don't know, just a couple of years ago, a guy who was more with it, who looked a lot like Donald Trump, had this to say about his friend, Ghislaine Maxwell, who had been arrested for child sex trafficking.
Mr. President, the other day a reporter asked you about Ghislaine Maxwell. You said, quote, I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, but I wish her well, whatever it is. Mr. President, Ghislaine Maxwell has been arrested on allegations of child sex trafficking. Why would you wish such a person well?
I don't know that, but I do know that.
She has. She's been arrested for that. You know that.
Her friend or boyfriend?
Epstein.
was either killed or committed suicide in jail. She's now in jail. Yeah, I wish her well. I'd wish you well. I'd wish a lot of people well. Good luck.
I wish we could be wishing Donald Trump well in jail, but that didn't happen, as we now know. Is anybody buying? He's either demented, and I haven't really thought about that. Who is it? Ghislaine? How do you spell it? Puff Daddy, he remembers. By the way, I don't think he goes by Puff Daddy any longer, but this is not helping matters. And now she's asking a great question, the press, which is, are you about to pardon a convicted child sex trafficker? And the fact that he doesn't reject it, like look his Christian right political base in the eye and tell them that he's not going to be pardoning a convicted child sex trafficker. Go ahead. We got time. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. DOJ. I'll talk to the DOJ. Well, are you gonna actually consider pardoning a convicted child sex trafficker? I may not. It's up to the I'll talk to the DOJ. I'm thinking about a lot of people. Puff Daddy. Is this working? No. And so as soon as Representative Grijalva gets sworn in, which if it's not going to be any day now, here's a note to her lawyers. File the writ of mandamus complaint to force the speaker to swear in your client. Okay? She I've been here 3 days and I haven't been sworn in yet. Screw that. File the lawsuit. Force his hand. Get her sworn in. She will be the 218th signature on the discharge petition, and we may finally get the Epstein files. But, I'm a little, I think the Democrats are starting to get their groove back, like Hakeem Jeffries with that live stream that my partner Ben Masalis was on. They're starting to figure out. I think Gavin Newsom was leading the way on how to troll Donald Trump. But you gotta bring a gun. No, that's the wrong. I'll forget that. You gotta use sharp elbows against the Trump administration. File the motion. File the complaint. Get sworn in. Let's get the Epstein files going. Let me turn now to the Oregon cases and the Illinois cases. The foundation for these cases, I really think, are what Judge Charles Breyer, did up in San Francisco several months ago in favor of California, where he found that the commandeering by Donald Trump of the state National Guard violated many things. The Posse Comitatus Act, where you can't use the military on domestic soil unless you invoke the Insurrection Act. That it also was an improper exercise of, pardon me, folks. As you know, I'm getting over a cold. An improper exercise of the statute that allows for the commandeering of the state militia, where there has to be a rebellion, an inability to exercise federal law, and the rest. Part of his order was affirmed on appeal. Pardon me, folks. Popok's alive. Part of it is the Posse Comitatus Act is still alive. But he laid the foundation for how you determine whether a president has properly commandeered the military. Now fast forward, Now fast forward to Judge Immergut in Oregon. She was a Trump appointee in the first administration. However, her background is quite extraordinary. She was a U.S. attorney in California, in Los Angeles, assistant U.S. attorney. She was the U.S. attorney for Portland, Oregon. She was a state district attorney. She worked for a couple of years in Vermont. But she's got an interesting body of work. She gets the case, and she rules on a temporary restraining order issued last Saturday about 4:30 that Donald Trump does not have the right to nationalize the Oregon National Guard in Portland just because he claims that Portland, Oregon is a war-ravaged city. That's news to the latte-sipping friends of mine in Portland who are like, we're war-ravaged? What, the 50 protesters who are peacefully protesting in front of ICE? There was one instance of one federal officer who was attacked. He used the stun gun and it was over. That's it. That's the entire. Now we're going to spend $10 million to take over Portland, Oregon, and try to embarrass the governor and the mayor. And the judge said no. Donald Trump fires back after attacking her along with Stephen Miller. She's an insurrectionist. She's a terrorist. She's an insurrectionist against the Constitution. She's a Portland, Oregon federal judge. She's commandeering and she's cutting off the president's war powers. Okay. Judge Immergut said in her order that Donald Trump's facts were not tethered to reality. And so as a result, Trump says, I got an idea. I've commandeered the California National Guard. I'll just send them north to Oregon. So a couple of hundred of them are on their way, which led California and Oregon joining together to file an amended complaint and a new motion for temporary restraining order emergency. They file it on Sunday. By Sunday at 10 p.m. Eastern time, the judge has another hearing. And she says, how is using the California National Guard or the Texas National Guard, how is that not a violation of my order? Well, you said don't nationalize the Oregon National Guard, the DOJ said to her. And she just shook her head and was like, okay, here's the new order, okay, on the same principles that I issued before, in which she said, citing our founding fathers, that Donald Trump is dangerously close to converting the rule of law and constitutional law into martial law. She said, no, you are not to send any National Guard into Portland, Oregon under any circumstances. And you again are blocked. Oh, and MAGA went crazy. MAGA went crazy. And now Donald Trump is throwing around the Insurrection Act. In fact, we have a clip of him musing about using the Insurrection Act. Let's play the clip. Do we have a clip? Ben? Okay. All right. Pitch and catch, swing and a miss. No clip. Take my word for it. Donald Trump threw around the Insurrection Act and said he was thinking about it. And that gives him tremendous powers. You know, it's from 1807 or so. And it gives the president, if he spots a rebellion or domestic violence or anything that gets in the way of his ability to execute the laws, boom, he can send in military, federal military, and nationalize the National Guard. And yeah, I see Ben said no. Look up in the chain, Ben. I think it's up in my chain. In any event, the problem with the Insurrection Act for law-abiding citizens like our audience is that it's very hard to get federal judge oversight over it because the Supreme Court has said it's up to Donald Trump, the president, in the first instance to declare the rebellion or declare the violence. And it's very hard to challenge him with federal courts, except if it's done in bad faith. So there is an ability, but we're going to be fighting and tussling over Donald Trump exercising the Insurrection Act or invoking it. He tried to do it and was counseled to do it by Jeffrey Clark in 2020 to seize voting machines. And he, for some reason, there were enough adults in the room that he decided not to do it. So we have that case. And a lot of the framework for her analysis in Oregon came from Judge Breyer in San Francisco. So we then have Illinois. And the problem with Illinois is, at first blush, the judge in Illinois didn't issue the temporary restraining order. So now they're flooding in. And so he's going to have to continue to revisit the issue with an evidentiary hearing and further briefing on it. But he let them in. She didn't let them in. And I think that's the better place. Now, even when a president sends in the troops, their conduct and behavior in violation of civil liberties is still evaluated by federal judges. So we got that going for us. And the writs of habeas corpus have not been suspended. So if you were detained or sent to a deep, dark, dank prison, you can still have a lawyer file a writ of habeas corpus and get before a federal judge because we haven't yet reached martial law. That's the next step. The question is, where are we on the clock with Donald Trump? How close to midnight in Insurrection Act are we? How close to beyond midnight, after midnight, and the martial law are we? And the suspension of the Constitution. These are not good conversations to have, but we got to have them because we got to talk truth to each other here on in the intersection. And I was called it the insurrection. It's the intersection insurrection. We're all here together, vibrating on the same frequency, right, to defend democracy. Let's turn to the Eastern District of Virginia. Leaky and on fire. The on fire part is, as a part of the 5,300 people that Pam Bondi has fired, all of the best and the brightest and the talent, the nonpartisan prosecutors that once proudly represented the Department of Justice are gone. Michael Ben-Ari posted on the door, like he was Martin Luther, a note typewritten decrying the destruction of the Department of Justice after he was fired because a right-wing social media self-proclaimed influencer I never heard of called Julie Kelly, Jan 6 denier, election denier, Laura Loomer wannabe, not a journalist, not a professor, not a lawyer, said, well, isn't it interesting that he used to work for Lisa Monaco, the number 2 under a real attorney general in the form of Merrick Garland. He's probably part of the resistance against Lindsey Halligan. He wasn't. He was doing his job. He was doing his job prosecuting terrorist cases like the 13 Americans who died in Kabul in Afghanistan. And he said justice should not turn on what Pam Bondi or the department or President Trump sees in their social media feed. He literally typed it and posted it to the door. And so you have the resistance, including what I told you earlier, the Justice Connection. I'll be having an interview tomorrow up with the head of the Justice Connection, who has an urgent message to the recent Department of to America, and a call to action to America about the destruction of the Department of Justice. But before that, I have the insurrection clip that we found for President Trump musing about using the insurrection. Let's play it.
Mr. President,
What?
the Insurrection Act, under what conditions or terms would you?
Well, I do it if it was necessary. So far, it hasn't been necessary, but we have an Insurrection Act for a reason. If I had to enact it, I'd do that. If people were being killed and courts were holding us up, or governors or mayors were holding us up, sure, I'd do that. I mean, I want to make sure that people aren't killed. We have to make sure that our cities are safe.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I'm getting my voice back. It's live because I had to take a cough break in the middle. Let me read to you from the urgent message from 282 former career employees who worked at the Department of Justice, all who got pushed out or resigned when the Trump administration started. They say that the DOJ's mission is to uphold the rule of law, to keep our country safe, and to protect civil rights. It's failing on all three fronts, says former members of the Department of Justice. The Justice Department cannot uphold the rule of law when it carries out the president's retribution campaign and protects his allies, violates court orders, and evades due process requirements, directs attorneys to violate their ethical responsibilities. That one just put a chill down my spine. It also can't keep our country safe when it ousts FBI employees, prosecutors, national security experts like Michael Ben-Ari and ATF officials. It cannot protect civil rights when it drives out 75% of the attorneys for the Civil Rights Division and refuses to enforce the nation's civil rights laws, using them instead as a cudgel against marginalized groups, and then calls on the Justice Department, which is the foundation of our system of justice, to heal itself, to heal thyself. We call on the leaders of the Department of Justice to reverse course, to remember the oath we all took to uphold the Constitution and adhere to the legal guardrails. We call on our fellow alumni of the Department of Justice to join us in sounding the alarm. We call on Congress to exercise its oversight responsibilities. We call on all Americans, that's where we come in, whose safety, prosperity, and rights depend on a strong DOJ to speak out against its destruction. Our democracy is only as strong, the alumni wrote, as the rule of law. And the rule of law can't survive without the principal institution that enforces it. Signed 282 former members of the Department of Justice. Good news. Justice Connection and all that alumni network for the Department of Justice is going to be doing, I believe, based on my conversation today, regular work on Legal AF YouTube channel with a playlist. Starts tomorrow. And they have a new Substack. And of course, we have a Legal AF Substack, and we're going to be doing some collaborative work together. That's, we have the ACLU regularly on Legal AF YouTube. We do 2 or 3 interviews a week with ACLU, who's got hundreds of cases against the Trump administration. And when we're not interviewing them, we're interviewing the Democracy Forward and Skye Perryman. She's got over 90 cases right now, including 3 filed this week against the Trump administration. And she regularly briefs and updates our audience on Legal AF Substack. So there's more resistance within the Eastern District of Virginia. Keep an eye on Liz Yusi, because I'm not sure Liz Yusi I think she's going to be in the alumni network very, very soon, because somehow it leaked out that she is not going to be prosecuting Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, on behalf of Donald Trump. She's the head of the Major Crimes Unit. She sits in, and I'm not mispronouncing this, she sits in Norfolk, Virginia, as part of the Eastern District of Virginia Prosecutor's Office. And the leak is that she's going to be advising Lindsay Halligan, what I wouldn't take to be a fly on the wall, in the next couple of weeks about why she's not more prosecuting Letitia James for mortgage fraud. I can tell you many of the reasons, because there's no mortgage fraud, because she didn't mislead a mortgage lender that she was going to be living full-time as her primary residence in Virginia as the New York Attorney General. Every idiot knows where the New York Attorney General lives, in New York, and that her niece, apparently with a power of attorney, signed all the papers anyway. What bank was defrauded? What benefit did she get? What criminal mind did she exhibit? None. That's why the first U.S. attorney, a conservative Republican, as you heard Senator Klobuchar call him, Eric Siebert. That's why he left, because he wasn't going to indict her, nor Comey. And now she's let it be known that in a couple of weeks she's going to get around talk about inviting your firing to briefing Lindsay Halligan about why there's no case. I checked before the live; she's still around. She's still on the payroll, but that's the phone call coming from within the House. That's part of the resistance. This is the leakiest, thank God, Department of Justice I've ever seen. And we got another one about James Comey's prosecution. It leaked out in the last 24 hours. Now we found out why James Comey should not be prosecuted, and these are now going to be witnesses for the defense. All right? John Durham, of all people. 4 years, the special prosecutor, spending tens of millions of dollars of wasted taxpayer dollars about the Russia hoax, and trying to figure out and get to the bottom of why the FBI went after Trump and others for Russia influence in the election. If you don't think the Russians influenced the outcome of the election in 2016, then I got a bridge of Brooklyn to sell you. Whether it was done through trolling on social media, or I'm not saying they went in and through satellites changed votes for Trump. I'm not insane. I'm not Sidney Powell, right? I'm not Mike Lindell, the pillow guy. But if you don't think that social media and brainwashing didn't happen to the American people to undermine Hillary Clinton, come on. So John Durham said about a month ago to the prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia, after an hour-long video link, there's no case against James Comey. He said, I spent 4 years looking at everything. In other words, if I had a case against Comey, you don't think I would have brought it? He brought 3 minor indictments. He didn't get a conviction. I think he got 1 conviction. And that was it. So he told them there's no case for perjury against Comey. Drop it. That went into the report that got delivered to Lindsay Halligan, which she completely ignored. But that's not all, folks. It also leaked that the Eastern District of Virginia career prosecutors spoke to their counterparts in D.C. at the U.S. Attorney's Office in District of Columbia, and they said, Comey, we looked at him for 2 years. We even impaneled a grand jury. There's no case. All of this will be used by Pat Fitzgerald, representing Comey, to kill that indictment where it stands. It's already deficient on its face and likely subject to, as soon as that arraignment happens, and get ready for the perp walk, everybody, because now I believe that Pat Fitzgerald is not going to do a darn thing to stop the perp walk. He's just going to get his own film crew to get great images and angles, like Midas would do, of the perp walk of his strapping FBI director, former Comey, and then use that as Exhibit A to support the motion to dismiss for vindictive prosecution. Why are we getting a perp walk? And then you got Kash Patel going, oh, the crybabies over at MSNBC. Oh, they didn't say anything when, I don't know, people like Bannon went to jail and Flynn and other, when they were perp walked. I don't remember actually. I mean, they took Bannon off a boat because they were afraid he was going to flee. That's different than the former FBI director who's willing to self-surrender. But they just want the perp walk, like Hannah Dugan, the Milwaukee County, the trial judge. You don't think she surrendered or wanted to surrender? Nope. Put her in handcuffs. And what leaked out is they're going to get some big, beefy, this is their words, not mine, big, beefy FBI agents wearing full kit FBI on the front and the back like it's some TV show to put him in handcuffs. Good, says Pat Fitzgerald, former U.S. attorney for Illinois, for Chicago. Do it to my client. More. Give us more gifts. So we'll see how that's going to run down. Of course, we'll have the video clips and everything up and running. We'll try to do it live if we can on Legal AF as well. So we got the leaky on fire Eastern District of Virginia, and we wish Liz UC well. And if she ends up at the Justice Connection, maybe we'll get her on Legal AF so she can talk about her time in the Trump administration. And now I want to turn, as we round this out, and first of all, I want to thank the audience. We've got a tremendous audience here. It's almost 9,000 people. It's just remarkable. You know, when we decided to do this show 6 months ago, 5 months ago, 8 months, whatever it was, I started it out as Popok Live. We started to do it as a real podcast. I wasn't sure. I was like, well, I'm on Wednesdays and Saturdays. I've got the YouTube thing over on Legal AF YouTube. I want to do the show. I've always wanted to do the show. Is there going to be an audience for this? And we built it, and you guys arrived. And yes, we can. And I really do appreciate it. Now, keep us on the air. Now more than ever. Law firms are getting hacked by the Chinese. My website got hacked by the Russians or Chinese posing as Russians. They're trying to bring us down. Midas Touch runs every other day on Substack. Another threat on Midas Touch. Another attempt on the life of Legal AF. I'm not kidding. We're not under the FCC yet. We're not, you can't shut us down. We don't have corporate parents, but the way we stay independent to be able to bring you the commentary without blowing smoke or sunshine, telling you the truth as best as I can tell you based on research and investigation and things that we find is through listener and audience support. We're like the old PBS. Remember when they used to ask for money every 10 minutes? We don't really ask for money, right? We're not behind a paywall. People are like, what's the business model here? We're not behind a paywall. We don't have outside investors. So we leave it to our amazing advertisers to support us, who don't tell us what to say, never would, or we would fire them. And then we've got, the paid memberships on things like Legal AF Substack. That's sort of it, folks. That's what keeps us, that's what keeps the team behind the scenes. That's what keeps our rapid response channels moving, and just your eyeballs and your fervent support in the comments and leave the review. All right, let's do this. Let's get the 500 reviews for the Intersection 5-star on Apple. I think I'm at 250 now. More reviews help the hummingbird theory. Nobody quite knows what goes into the algorithm, but so you do it all. You got to do everything. And being here tonight, just extraordinary. I thank you very much for it. I sent out some free memberships to show you my appreciation earlier in the night. Again, tip of the hat and chef's kiss to everybody here on our show tonight. Let's talk about the Supreme Court. Tomorrow on, again, the ecosystem in play, on the Legal AF YouTube channel, just go into the live tab. We've got Bost versus Illinois. I think it starts at 10 a.m. I'll be doing commentary. Sometimes I'm in the chat. Sometimes I do it in a video right after. This is about whether mail-in ballots that come in after Election Day are going to be counted. Donald Trump doesn't want mail-in. He wants one day, you vote on Election Day, no early voting, no mail-in voting, because these are all the places that Democrats excel. We're really good at organizing. We're really good at early voting. We're really good at mail-in voting. We're really good at absentee voting and getting souls to the polls. Donald Trump doesn't want that. He wants Election Day is Election Day. Well, states are allowed to, under the Constitution, to set the means and methods on Election Day, even for federal elections. And people recognize mail-in ballots, take a minute, especially with a post office that's been ravaged by Donald Trump and undermined by Elon Musk. I literally mailed a letter from Miami Miami back to, I'm trying where I sent it, to New York. A letter in an envelope, like snail mail with a stamp on it. It arrived 7 days later. 7 days. I was getting like Dunning emails, like, it had a check in it. Like, where's the check? I'm like, it's in the mail, literally. So states like Illinois are like, we'll give you plus 14. As long as it comes in 14 days after the election, we'll count it. Who cares? As long as nobody opens the envelope, as long as it's postmarked on the day of the election. And that's mail-in ballot people overseas, like our armed forces. And no, two Trump stooges filed a suit that made its all way up to the Supreme Court. Now, the only issue that's really supposed to be adjudged tomorrow during oral argument is whether either of these two clowns have standing to actually bring the case. They're not supposed to touch the substance of the decision, but anytime I see voting and election and somebody trying to take away and rip my mail-in ballot out of my hand, it sends up a spider sense. So we need to follow that case. There's lots of other ones coming up. We just had one today about conversion therapy. Doesn't that sound Orwellian? It's just a therapist and somebody and trying to convince them not to be gay or not to be a transgender person because their parents, I guess, sent them there, or because they want, in the words of the plaintiff, they want to align who they are in gender with their Christian values. Okay, it's banned in 22 states because it has been shown by study after study and psychological study after psychological study that it does tremendous amount of harm to the person. It's pseudoscience. It's like, getting under the hood of somebody's brain and tinkering when you don't know what you're doing. But this Christian therapist, why is it always the Christians? Sorry, I'm not trying to undermine the Christians. It's always the Christian baker who doesn't want to bake the cake for the gay couple, the Christian wedding invitation designer who doesn't want to create a website. Oh, God. Anyway, in any event, it's a Christian therapist who wants to do conversion therapy and brought this on a First Amendment free speech ground. Free speech runs both ways, right? It's your right to hear in the marketplace of ideas somebody's comments, and as long as they're not terroristic or violent, and your right to say it. And that's where the hearing went today. Like, you can tell there's a majority already to strike down conversion ban laws like in Colorado under it is a viewpoint-based discriminatory gagging of First Amendment rights. They didn't really get into the religion part, but that was sort of in the background. So say goodbye to 22 states conversion therapy bans. Say hello to pseudo psychology that people are going to be subjecting their kids to, I guess, under the false flag of First Amendment freedom of speech. I hope that this Supreme Court is as vigilant about the First Amendment when inevitably all of these protesters, the radical left-wing protesters on the streets, are crushed by Donald Trump and thrown into jail. I hope they remember how strongly felt they were about the First Amendment when that happens. Not so sure about that. We've got lots of other cases. The court is open first Monday in October. It runs until, just to give you a little bit of a primer, it runs until June-ish. They hold, like middle of June, they hold their last oral argument. Again, the emergency docket runs parallel. They're still running in with emergency docket applications from Donald Trump. And if you're Donald Trump, you do the same thing. He's winning 84% of his emergency dockets, right? Joe Biden, 50%. That delta is political hacks on the Supreme Court. There's no other way to call it. I used to not call them the MAGA 6, but they're the MAGA 6. Roberts, Amy Coney Barrett, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Alito, and Thomas. We've got a great new book that's out by one of our major contributors on Legal AF YouTube, Lisa Graves, called Without Precedent, about John Roberts. She's been tracking John Roberts' career since before he became a lower-level federal judge and trying to call out that he was a Trojan horse, that he was going to destroy America. And she's been calling and sounding that whistle, that siren, for the last 20 years. And now she wrote a book about it. And it's required reading on your shelf. I don't get a kickback for this. I just really admire Lisa Graves. She served in all three branches of government. And she's written a fabulous book. Pick it up. It's called Without Precedent. And I've got a couple of videos up on Legal AF YouTube in which I interview her. You can learn more about the book. But we'll be tracking the Supreme Court. I got a show with Dina Dahl over on Legal AF YouTube channel every week, Saturday mornings, called Unprecedented, about the United States Supreme Court. And we're going to be doing the lives of, not every live, there's 70 oral arguments, but the ones we think we'll curate for you. And then we'll be doing pregame show and postgame show. We have one tomorrow at 10 a.m. it's Boss versus Illinois, about mail-in ballots that matter. I really want to thank everybody in the audience tonight. We've still got 8,000 people with us. Appreciate each and every one of you. Every Tuesday night, Intersection, 8 p.m., right here on the Midas Touch Network. Wednesdays and Saturdays, the original, the extra crispy, Legal AF. Wednesdays, I do it with Karen Friedman Agnifilo. Saturdays with Ben Mycelis, my good friend and co-founder, who I hope to see. I'm going to be doing a live stream. Get this, live stream a week from Saturday. We'll advertise the crap out of it in San Diego with my special guest, Attorney General Rob Bonta of California, about all things that matter, about the 23 attorneys general fighting for our democracy, led by people like Rob Bonta. I think Rob Bonta one day will be the governor of California. I think Rob Bonta could be the president of the United States one day. I mean, not the next one. He's not going to jump over his boss, Gavin Newsom. But one day, that's how much I admire Rob Bonta. And we're even trying to get one of the leading candidates for governor of California to join us there. I'm going to do it as a live stream, a live feed. And that's going to be next Saturday. We'll give you more details about that. But thanks for being here. Shout out to the Midas Mighty and the Legal AFers. See you next Tuesday. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.